We're just waiting on one of our adjudicators, and then we're going to kick off very shortly, so only a minute or two away. Maybe in the short term, I might invite the students to come on up and take their places. So we have the affirmative team from Fiji. Would you like to come up and take your place? And also the negative side, which is the Vanuatu team. To another exciting round of debates for the Melanesian School Debating Competition. Great to have you back. We've got two terrific debates ahead of us this morning, and of course we're all leading up to the grand final on Friday. My name is Ben Bahane. I'm at the Pacific Institute of Public Policy, and it's my great honour to welcome you all again this morning. I'd like to introduce our esteemed adjudicators this morning. We have Paul Nalau, who's a Senior Policy Analyst for Education and the Youth sectors in the Department of Strategic Policy, Planning and Aid Coordination with the Vanuatu Government. Welcome, Paul. We have Francis Herman, who is the Program Manager for PACMAS, which is the Pacific Media Assistance Fund. And we have Josiana Jackson, who is the Monitoring Officer for Vanuatu Law and Justice Program within the Ministry of Justice in Vanuatu. Welcome. I'll take this opportunity to introduce our debating teams as well. I'm going to step on the floor so that I can actually read their name cards. So with Vanuatu, we have Alicia Kalstrap, we have Carly Regan-Vanu, and we have William Natiko for the Vanuatu team. Give them a big round. And for Fiji, we have Anoshika Nath, we have Apeli Korowiecki, and we have Shalal Shand. Give them a big round. Okay, the motion this morning that they'll be debating is that Melanesian countries benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. I'll say again, that Melanesian countries benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. I'm just going to quickly go through the rules again, just so that it's all fresh in your memories. The rules for this debate are aligned with those of the Australasia Debate Guide. Students will have 6 minutes to present their case, with our timekeeper holding up a card at the halfway mark, followed by a card when the speaker has 1 minute left, and then a final 10 seconds, at which the student must promptly wrap up their presentation. Note that content after this mark will still be taken into consideration, but marks will be lost for timing. Okay, with the rules done and the introductions done, I think it's time to get underway. I'd like to invite the first speaker to the affirmative case to come on up and begin the debate. Thank you.
The heroes of the world community are not those who withdraw when difficulties arise, nor those who can envision neither the prospect of success nor the consequences of failure, but those who stand the heat of the battle, the fight for world peace through the United Nations. And these, my dear audience, are our world peacekeepers, the adjudicators, fellow debaters, the chairman, and dear audience. My greetings to you all. My topic area of concern for today's debate is that Melanesian countries do benefit by sending peacekeepers to international conflict zone. I repeat, Melanesian countries do benefit. Before moving on with this argument, I would like to introduce my team members and the structure of our debate. I, Anushika, will be the first speaker, and I will be elaborating on the economic and social benefits. Our second speaker, Ipeli, will further elaborate and support our argument with reference to the employment benefits and technological advancement. And our third speaker, Shayal, will basically sum up all the points that is discussed by speaker 1 and 2. Peacekeeping, as defined by the UN, is a way to help countries turn by conflict and create conditions for sustainable peace. Fiji's former military leader and now the Prime Minister, Mr. Barenge Bainimarama, underlined his country's proud track record in UN peacekeeping operations of professionalism, discipline, compassion, ability, traits. Melanesian countries, ladies and gentlemen, tend to participate in peacekeeping more than the developed countries. Yes, more than the developed countries, dear friends. This may be due in part because forces from smaller countries avoid evoking thoughts of imperialism. For example, in December 2005, Andrea expelled all American, Russian, European, and Canadian personnel from peacekeeping missions on their border with Ethiopia. Additionally, my dear friends, an economic motive appeals to the developing nations. The reimbursement rate for peacekeepers per month include $1,028 for pay and allowance, $303 for specialists, $68 for personal clothing, gear and equipment, and $5 for personal weaponry. This is a significant source of revenue for a developing country, ladies and gentlemen. To add on, UN peacekeepers that are soldiers and military officers, civilian police officers from many countries monitor and observe peace processes that emerge in past conflict situations and assist ex-combatants in implementing the peace agreements they have signed. Such assistance, dear friends, comes in many forms. Yes, it comes in many forms, including confidence, building measures, power sharing arrangements, electoral support, strengthening the rule of the law, and social and economic development. Peacekeeping has unique strength. Yes, you had that right. It has unique strength, including legitimacy, burden sharing, and the ability to develop and sustain troops and police from around the globe, integrating them with civilian peacekeepers to advance multi-dimensional mandates. To highlight more on that, dear friends, peacekeeping prevents the rise of failed states and it helps to increase the defense system of our own country. For instance, any soldier from a Melanesian country who engages in peacekeeping will learn more about the arms and ammunition, which will strengthen or advance the defense system of any nation. And in doing so, it will maintain good relationship with other countries, and at the same time, it helps in restoring stability in your own country. Fiji established its permanent mission to the United Nations on 13 October 1970, 3 days after attaining its independence from Britain. Since then, Fiji's participation in the United Nations has notable primarily for its active role in UN peacekeeping operations, which began in 1978. Fiji was the first country, ladies and gentlemen, the first country to volunteer troops to protect UN officials in Iraq. My dear audience, according to Daily Mail Online, dated 12 September 2014, and I quote, Fijian peacekeepers hailed as heroes. as they are released by Syrian Al-Qaeda group, which captured them on Israeli border. Because of their discipline, not even one of the militants was killed, and none of them were harmed, unquote. Participation in UN peacekeeping operations has obvious benefits, dear friends, to the flooding Melanesian nations, including being seen as a good international citizen, the generations of foreign exchange, and improved youth employment. To add on, it also gives them a sense of belief in being part of a complex diplomatic solution of global proportions. I believe sending peacekeepers to the international conflict zone will maintain international peace between nations and countries. The implementation of good practice, dear friends, in these areas has also had additional benefits, including increased saving for missions and improved safety and security for local communities as well as the peacekeeping staff. Hence, we strongly believe, yes, we strongly believe that Melanesian countries do benefit by sending peacekeepers to international conflict zone. Thank you.
As you have been stated that it means military peacekeeping will strengthen force. The question is, but who will need to do the fight against? Adjudicators, timekeeper, FIJI team of the affirmative side, welcome. Members of the audience, good morning. Our debate topic today is Melanesian countries benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. As a team on the negative side, we strongly disagree with this statement. Are we Melanesian countries really benefiting from this exercise? Are we rewarded and promoted? And does it improve our status as Melanesian countries? Or are we exposing and risking our countries to outside threat? As a first speaker of the negative team, I'll be defining key terms and presenting our first 2 points of argument about both violence overseas and in home countries. Our second speaker will be rebutting the affirmative's point of argument and presenting the team's last 2 arguments about health, safety, and training of peacekeepers. Our third speaker will be rebutting and reaffirming our points of argument with a summary and recommendations. The key terms to in this topic are 1. Benefit. Benefit is to gain advantage. 2. Peacekeeper. A soldier or military force to preserve peace. 3. International conflict zones. Global zones where violence, wars, conflicts occur. Our first topic of discussion is the issue of violence among peacekeepers. Ladies and gentlemen, soldiers physically come equipped with uniforms and usually guns. From a militant perspective, the message is given is that force is effective in achieving peace. Therefore, force gives birth to violence. Take this quote from Albert Einstein. Peace cannot be achieved by force. It can only achieved by understanding people. You must understand, Melanesians. Violence towards innocent civilians, sexual assaults, and political violence is not appropriate and is not peacekeeping. It is military force. Reports of United Nations peacekeeping personnel being involved in sexual abuse have been failed. These include child prostitutions in Cambodia and raping of women in Bosnia, to name a few. Peacekeepers are not making peace, people. They're using the advantage of the rule as responsible change makers, and they're abusing it. Professor of political science Charles Anthony Smith says that the United Nations is generally late to the game. Loses interest once the conflict has been abided, has abided and promotes a false peace that ultimately leads to a recurrence of hostilities. Ladies and gentlemen, learning how to fight, kill, and win has established particular ways in terms of us and them, friends and enemy, human and non-human. Now, how can we justify that this kind of violence benefit Melanesian participating countries? Well, in fact, it doesn't. It does the opposite, damaging the reputation of the donor country. But last but not least, the return of our soldiers could be contributing factors to political violence. An example close to our doorstep was the military coup in Fiji, led by the previous Colonel Sediveni Rabuka in 1987. Rabuka was a peacekeeper and used his tactics and know-how used his status and know-how military tactics to overthrow the government. Does it sound good like a result of peacekeeping? Finally, being worse, some soldiers have established a mindset of the violence they were exposed to. They are quick to anger and get frustrated easily, thus are more often offenders in domestic violence among other crimes. How is it benefiting for the individual soldier? How is it benefiting for the Melanesian as a whole? I ask you as good citizens of Melanesia to stop and think. Are you satisfied that we are part of the violence? Our next point is cause. We're talking about cause to get involved in such activity as peacekeeping. It is not a cheap venture. According to the article United Nations Peacekeeping, the annual United Peacekeeping cost continued to rise from 3.6 billion in 1993 to 5.03 billion US dollar in 2006. In addition to these, all member countries are legally obliged to pay the share of peacekeeping costs to the United Nations. For example, Vanuatu's contribution to the United Nations is 1 million Watu, as stated by the former United Nations peacekeeper in Vanuatu in a personal interview. Some news that everyone must know is that, despite its lack of application, member states owe the United Nations approximately 1.20 billion as of June 2004. Does anyone in this room know that the peacekeepers' political influence are participating in missions? A very good example I will show you here is the financial effect of 1987 coup led by Colonel Sediveni Rabuka. During the change of Fijian government, the economic declined by 3% informal sector employment and a loss of 30% of real incomes, reported in the Fiji Times Online dated 29 August 2015. Once again, the arguments clearly prove that Melanesian countries do not benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. I'd like to read you with a quote from Bertrand Russell: "War does not determine who is right, but only who is left." Thank you for your attention.
Clear your mind, sit up straight, and lend me your ears. For my argument will either leave you optimistic or pessimistic at the end of our motion. The chairman, fellow adjudicators, my opponents, ladies and gentlemen, my greetings to you all. Our soldiers on peacekeeping duties in the volatile Middle East have thus been praised for their restraint and humanitarian qualities. These encounters have indelibly shaped the self-image of military officers, many of whom are now senior bureaucrats. Engaging in peacekeeping had the unintended consequence of encouraging the military to develop a political mediator role. Peacekeeping has proven to be one of the most effective tools available to the UN to assist host countries navigate the difficult path from conflict to peace. I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, it will assist host countries navigate the difficult path from conflict to peace. UN peacekeepers provide security and the political and peace-building support to help countries make the difficult early transition from such conflicts to peace. Today's multidimensional peacekeeping operations are called upon not only to maintain peace and security, but also to facilitate political process, protect civilians, assist in the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of former combatants. To further highlight, my dear listeners, sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones will support the organization of elections, protect and promote human rights, and assist in the restoring the rule of law. They have a potential to be the most effective mediators because of their knowledge of the region's political environment, culture, economic, and other conditions. UN peacekeeping received the Nobel Peace Prize Award in 1988. This alone, ladies and gentlemen, shows the importance of UN peacekeeping around the world. Yes, around the world, not only to our Melanesian countries. So we, as the citizens of Melanesian countries, should be proud of our citizens who are deployed as UN peacekeepers. Some of us have the assumption that only soldiers and police officers are part of UN peacekeeping. It's not, ladies and gentlemen, it's not. UN peacekeeping has involved specialist personnel other than soldiers, human rights lawyers, policemen, election organizers, war crime investigators, and relief aid workers with UN operations. Missions may today have to create and stabilize a peace settlement as well as supervise it. So it's not only the soldiers, but people of other professions can also be part of UN peacekeeping, thus creating employment. UN peacekeepers are on the war zones and also work in UN headquarters in New York. This helps them to learn the logistics involved in the mission. So the UN peacekeepers from Melanesian countries learn a lot about new technologies and inventions that are used in maintaining peace around the world. To bring this and information back to their home country and pass this knowledge to their fellow soldiers. So this helps us in times of need. Before moving on to my conclusion, I would like to rebut on a point raised by my fellow opponent. My fellow opponent mentioned that, are we really benefiting? Well, if we aren't really benefiting, then why is Vanuatu sending 16 of their own soldiers to UN peacekeeping? They also raised a point on status. This also creates recognition. Australia and New Zealand pleaded that Fiji peacekeepers be rejected during the coup, but because of their bravery, world record, patriotism, and certainty, this plea was shoved off, and Fiji continues to serve UNW. So wake up, Melanesia. Can't you see that we do benefit? If you can't, then I'm sorry. It's either your brain playing out with you or my arguments are correct and you are denying it. Let us all know that peacekeeping is different from peace enforcement. Peacekeeping refers to activities that tend to create conditions that favor lasting peace. Such peacekeepers wear a blue beret or blue helmet. This itself indicates that they are not to be harmed or they themselves be involved in any misfire or arms and ammunition. After all, they are called peacekeepers, not peace ninjas. Fiji participated in UN peacekeeping missions from 1978. Yes, Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka must have caused the coup in 1987. But does this mean that all those personnel deployed will cause a coup in the future? Ladies and gentlemen, all of them? Well, I'm looking forward to World War III then. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say it again, that we do benefit from UN peacekeeping. We get to learn about new technologies, how to mediate and solve issues to bring peace and harmony between conflicting parties. Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, that it's because of the UN peacekeepers that we get to sleep peacefully at night without the fear of wars and conflicts. Thus, our team stand by our argument and firmly, boldly believe that we do benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. Thank you.
Good morning to adjudicators, audience, and welcome to our fellow debaters from Fiji. Firstly, I'd like to rebut what the affirmative stated when they said that conflict is breeding peace. there's actually lots of evidence that peacekeepers actually bring violence and they commit crimes like sexual assault, rape, and murder in those places. Just recently, a teenager was beaten and killed, even though he was innocent, in one of these places. So yes. Next point is that you said it provides jobs for people without opportunity. So what? They'll be in a war zone for a couple of months. Then what will they do when they get back and are unable to have a normal job due to their mental state or permanent injuries? Now, dear audience, I'd like you to turn to the person beside you. Would you want them to be in areas of conflict, war zone, and danger, with bombs exploding around them constantly, knowing they may never see their family again, not knowing if they'd live to see the next day? No? Then why would we send our Melanesian people to do just the same? Dangers lurk behind every corner in these international conflict zones, and Fiji would know this, having so many peacekeepers. Just recently, they were captured by a terrorist organization in the region between Syria and Israel. A $1 million ransom had to be paid by Qatar to release them. Though none of the peacekeepers were harmed, some of the people saving them lost their lives. Of course, this is not uncommon in international conflict zones. 1,620 peacekeepers have died in current operations alone, according to the UN. This brings us to post-traumatic stress disorder. These are 4 words many peacekeepers know all too well. It's a condition that severely affects your mental health. Many soldiers and peacekeepers that experience war and conflict have it. In fact, 31% of Vietnamese peacekeepers have this. Global news states that there has been a spike in soldier suicides and that depression in these people is a huge concern. 1 in 5 turn to alcohol and 11% turn to drugs. If we support peacekeeping, we must acknowledge that we are the ones to let this happen, but Melanesia, that is not us. We must acknowledge that that isn't us. Next, I'll talk about TBI. TBI, also known as traumatic brain injury, or TBI, is something incredibly common in anyone around conflict zones. Explosions destroy the brain's tissue and cells, which results in coma and unresponsiveness. The luckier ones may be able to function semi-properly, but become aggressive and can't do regular everyday things such as speak or write properly. This is merely caused by being around bombs, people. Now let's take a look at ourselves, Melanesia. How do you think we can afford to care for these peacekeepers' mental and physical health? We will already be losing more money than we earned, as our first speaker stated. Who will pay for all these injuries? Not to mention, Melanesia doesn't have hospitals equipped to tend to severe brain damage or even bullet extraction surgery. And I know that I haven't seen a mental health clinic specializing in PTSD here before. Have you? How will we train these peacekeepers? Training is a huge part of protecting themselves, but also the innocents in the war zones. Take this example. One enemy lies within a crowd of 20 innocents. The peacekeeper panics and shoots everyone just to kill the enemy. And yes, sadly, this happens every day in conflict zones everywhere. It will also cost even more money to hire somebody to train us, and we know we can't afford that now, Melanesia. Back to the Fijians captured by the terrorist organization. Though they were saved from them, were they forgotten? This terrorist organization now knows that Fiji was against them and knows their country. Now, I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but it is not wise for small countries like us to be making huge enemies overseas. Countries like the USA may be able to afford it, but they also have 365 times the amount of people that Fiji does. We aren't equipped to protect ourselves from enemies that large. My next point takes us to PNG. We are all aware of the bloodshed and horror there. Detective Sergeant Michelle Harris describes PNG levels of violence to be equal to that of a war zone. Too many West Papuans die every day, people. Too many victims of horrible human rights abuses. And now, remember this debate refers to Melanesia as a whole. This means I would expect the other team to consider PNG as well. But how could they expect PNG to benefit from peacekeeping overseas when they need to be protected in their own homes? Listen to me, people, we can't be naive about this. We don't have the right as Fijians and Vanuatu, who live in safe countries, to claim that PNG should send their protection overseas. We can't expect them to throw any safety they may have out the window as they fight for their lives for safety. We should focus on making Melanesia safe, stable, and peaceful before we try to keep peace elsewhere in the world. Lastly, I'd like to remind everyone here that peacekeeping is very, very different to peacemaking. Actually, supporting peaceful harmony is not synonymous with military-like people holding guns to kill the enemy. Perhaps we should stop thinking peace means violence and instead focus on better ways to achieve our shared goal of peace. To conclude, I'd like to send you all a message. We can't be so unassuming of such a complex situation. There are dark clouds that lurk behind the sunny idea of sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones, and we need to make sure we consider them rather than ignore them. So today, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. I object to violence because when it appears to do good, the good is only temporary. The evil it does is permanent. Thank you.
Respected Chairperson, adjudicators, fellow debaters, invited guests, and dear audience, a very good morning to you all. I firmly believe that we, as Melanesian countries, do benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. We benefit both economically and socially. UN peacekeepers, who are already part of their own country's military force, are paid highly and also given allowances by the UN. This does not include the payment made to the government. The peacekeepers are paid directly by the UN. With the money received, the peacekeepers are able to feed their families and fulfill their needs and wants, even though physically they are not present there. The government too benefits by sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. The government is paid in foreign currency, ladies and gentlemen. The UN also makes payments for depreciation of equipment used during a mission. In a way, the peacekeepers are able to serve both their families and their nation. We as Melanesians should be proud of our peacekeepers. They are the pride of our nation, ladies and gentlemen, and their legacy lasts for generations to come. A very good example is of late Corporal Sepenaya Sukaneivalu from Fiji, who was part of the World War II. He died in the line of duty, making not only his country, but the whole world proud of his deeds. He left behind the legacy of his deeds for his fellow countrymen to follow. Peacekeepers are professionally gaining from their exposure to the world. In particular, they get to understand how advanced armies operate. They are exposed to many different systems of military management, equipment, and types of conflict. As a result, their capacity to fight war is enhanced. Moreover, they learn to operate in an international environment that provides them with opportunities to acquire and apply new knowledge. Peacekeeping duties comes with career opportunities too, with some peacekeepers being promoted to higher positions in the UN after their peacekeeping missions. In terms of diplomacy and foreign affairs, the performance of the peacekeepers has bolstered the country's international reputation. The country gets favorable recognition and publicity. The country's clout in international and multilateral settings has grown accordingly. My dear friends, we should not only look at the monetary gains, which we are already getting. Look at the social benefits of peacekeeping duties. These peacekeepers learn new culture and are able to adapt to the environment of the country they're in. The peacekeeping troops are known to be highly disciplined, well-trained, hardworking, and personally committed. Peacekeepers have a reputation for adapting to local exigencies and demonstrating a caring attitude towards the local people in the countries concerned. Peacekeepers tend to inspire confidence amongst conflicting parties as well as non-combatant locals. For example, according to the UN peacekeeping operations in the Middle East, during their peacekeeping operation in the Middle East,
From May 1948 to present, the locals and peacekeepers are able to live in harmony there with each other due to their professionalism, commitment, impartiality, integrity, and humane attitude. Adding on, ladies and gentlemen, the UN peacekeepers are very patriotic. They are proud to serve their country and the UN as well. Also, a soldier is supposed to be fearless and courageous, which they already are. If we fear and say that our soldiers may die in the line of duty, then ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, UN peacekeeping is not the job of cowards. I repeat, UN peacekeeping is not the job of cowards. It is rather the job of fearless citizens who are ready to sacrifice their life for the sake of peace and harmony around the world, whereby patriotism surpasses emotions. Before moving on to my conclusion, I would like to rebuttal on a few points raised by my fellow opponents. They stated some good statistics, but where's the source of it? Without a good source, these statistics can be considered to be false, or they can rather not have any importance to our discussions being made here. They also stated that we are also contributing a large sum of money before becoming part of the UN peacekeeping organization. Well, even though we are contributing, look at what we are getting in return. After contributing a certain sum of money, we are benefiting both economically and socially. Many points were raised regarding the death of our peacekeepers. Well, let me remind you, peacekeepers go to countries that are torn by wars, post-war countries, not countries which are actually having war at the current time. So, how can we say that those peacekeepers are going to have war? Even for their mental state, peacekeepers go through many counseling sessions and psychological analysis before they are put together with their families back in their home countries. So, they will very firmly be able to recover from the mental trauma they face. Regarding death is inevitable, ladies and gentlemen. Take for example, people die in road accidents. So out of fear of dying, should people stop using the roads? No, my dear friends, I don't think so. In the same way, peacekeepers should continue to serve under the UN. If they die, they sacrifice their lives for a good cause. They are paid by the UN. Their families are given allowances by the UN even after death. This can help the families survive. Common people die every day. They are not paid. How will their families survive? These peacekeepers have an advantage there. Even the peacekeepers leave behind a legacy for their countrymen and their children to follow. So it is quite beneficial, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, I would like to say that yes, ladies and gentlemen, we do benefit. I repeat, we do benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. And we are proud of these peacekeepers who are helping to maintain peace and harmony around the world, and thus making our own Melanesian countries proud. Hence, my team and I firmly believe that Melanesian countries do benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. As the final speaker for the negative team, I will be summarizing and reaffirming our arguments, as well as stating our recommendation before concluding. First of all, I'd like us all to please take a moment and picture the scene with me. We live in a country riddled with wars, say Lebanon, Burma, or maybe even Syria. You constantly live in fear over the years of men with guns, men with machetes, men who have burned down your city, men who have murdered your family in cold blood. But then you hear that help has arrived from Melanesia, and that they're down at the city square. So you run down to the city square, and at the entrance, you stop, you compose yourself. You take in a deep breath, you close your eyes, and then when you open your eyes, what do you see? More men with more guns, bigger tanks, and deadlier bombs. Gee, peaceful image, right? Thank you, Melanesia. Ladies and gentlemen, sending our men overseas to kill in countries that are already suffering from so much loss does not guarantee peace, and Melanesia does not benefit from being part of this. Before I continue, I would like to rebut what the previous speakers have said. First of all, the first speaker mentioned something about how Fiji benefits from sending peacekeepers overseas, and Fiji benefits from this, and Fiji benefits from that. Can I just state that Fiji is part of Melanesia? Fiji is not the entire region of Melanesia. So, now, the second speaker mentioned something about how peacekeepers are heroes. We wholeheartedly agree that someone who's so determined to fight for peace, is a hero. But then, as our first speaker pointed out, our second speaker, there are side effects of being in war zones. Now, you try explaining to a 5-year-old child the reason their father isn't the way he was before, or the reason that their father is dead. I mean, imagine, I'm sorry, your dad's dead, or I'm sorry, your dad's beating you up. But don't worry, he's a hero, you should be proud. I mean, do you get what I mean? Yes. The second thing. The third speaker, one of the speakers mentioned something about how our peacekeepers professionally benefit. They gain professionally, meaning they come back with experience. Do you know what they also come back with? PTSD, post-deployment syndrome, depression. They come back with a violent mentality. And that, I don't think that benefits Melanesia socially, I'm sorry. Now, to reaffirm our points. There are numerous researchers that prove that peacekeepers returning from war zones are more likely to resort to violence as a means to resolve day-to-day problems. This means that ex-veterans are more likely to be involved in crimes such as domestic violence, child abuse, and sadly enough, manslaughter. Now, according to a research report in the Daily Beast, 1 in every 10 inmates has served in the military. And for the benefit of the Affirmative team, I would just like to say that this particular report was written by Matthew Wolf, and it was published on the 28th of July, 2018. Our sources are entirely critical. We didn't have time to come up with any. So. Now, our second point was cost. The United Nations does, in fact, reimburse donor countries for peacekeeper salaries, but who's to say we're not spending more than we're gaining? Sending troops overseas costs money. Paying for medical insurance costs money. And I'm sorry, but coups that overthrow the government costs money. And it is true what the second speaker said, that not every peacekeeper who has gone overseas would be throwing coups every year. But then again, Fiji has had 3 coups in 19 years. And what does that tell us? Now, did you know that leaving our country's defenseless also negatively impacts our economy? This is true. An article recently published about the PNG military states, and I quote, "The Papua New Guinea Defense Force is small even for a small country. Now, coupled with the fact that they're sending troops overseas, there is poor border control, which results in plundering of the country's fish stocks. An estimation is that Papua New Guinea loses 500 million, yes, 500 million Australian dollars annually as a result of these illegal activities. Benefiting economically? I think not." Now, our third point deals with the mental health of peacekeepers. Post-traumatic stress disorder, post-deployment syndrome, depression, severe brain trauma. All of these side effects of being in war zones. According to brainlandmilitary.org, 20% of veterans are diagnosed with PTSD, and 30% of soldiers develop mental problems within 3 to 4 months of being home. These illnesses render these men unable to find or keep normal jobs, or to even lead normal lives once they're back home. Here's how one Iraqi veteran who suffered getting help for his post-deployment syndrome describes his feelings. "As hard as the 15 months in Iraq were, they're nothing compared to how it is to be back home. I don't like being around people, I just want to sleep, but when I do, my dreams are horrible. They're mostly about what we did to those children. My body feels awful, my mind feels awful, and my heart feels awful. How can this be me? When will it all end? I don't think I can live like this much longer. My fellow Melanesians, our countries cannot possibly claim to be benefiting from sending our well-abled men to international conflict zones if this is how they're returning. That is, if they return at all." Now, our team would like to suggest our recommendations towards this motion. First, instead of sending a large sector of our population towards their deaths, we should be concentrating on keeping our current population within our region at a sustainable amount and ensuring all peace and safety security within Melanesian homes. We don't find any benefit as to sending our troops into other countries. Instead, Melanesia, we should be finding solutions that will be benefiting us. And we believe that our team has these prosperous solutions. To not disregard the fact that West Papua is still a war zone. So why do we want to resolve others' problems when we haven't yet even found a solution to our own? I'm sorry, but we think we see this at a reasonable scale. In conclusion, to benefit from something is to gain more of an advantage from it. Now, my team and I have proved with our arguments that the advantages of sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones are tremendously outweighed by the disadvantages, thus reaffirming our beliefs that Melanesian countries do not benefit from sending peacekeepers to international conflict zones.
I would like to leave you with a quote from William Sherman. I quote, "I am sick and tired of war. Its glory is all moonshine. It is only those who have neither fired a single shot nor heard the shrieks and groans of the wounded who cry out for blood, who cry out for vengeance, and who cry out for desolation. War is hell, and hell, my fellow Melanesians, rubs off." Unquote. Thank you for listening.
Wow, that was a, let's give them both a big round of applause. Congratulations, some fine speakers there and some really excellent points raised. We're going to let our adjudicators take a little bit of time to mark points and come up with a decision on the winning team. In the meantime, we might throw the question open to the audience once again and have a bit of a Q&A. See if anyone has interest in probing some of the stories or facts that our teams have been coming up with. If there's any questions in the audience, we'll do our best to respond to them. Any questions? Yes.
Hi, sorry. My question's to Fiji. So you've questioned the Vanuatu team sources, but I'll question your first speaker's source of the fact that you stated that Fiji only sends one peacekeeper out. That sends a few peacekeepers out and then one died. Is that accurate? Is that an accurate? Can you give me an accurate source? There was no source mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, but my fellow debater here didn't even mention anything of that sort. It's not in her content, and we are well versed with her content. She didn't mention any of those. Thank you.
Sorry, I've got another question. Well, so
How are your sources?
So can you give us any other sources of people surviving, peacekeepers surviving conflict zones in Fiji and benefiting their families?
Okay, I think with this question she's asking for not the position you've taken today, but actually what your understanding of peacekeeping has been like for Fiji.
Can you restate your question, please?
Okay, so can you give us any evidences of that supports peacekeepers going out into international conflict zones and coming back and benefiting their families? Because I know they'll probably benefit their families for just a while, but then again, the loss is greater. As you know, if one dies, and the loss is greater.
Thank you.
They get
for the
money,
question.
the loss is greater.
Let's bear in mind that Fiji started peacekeeping in 1978 till date, and so far only 51 soldiers have died for this many years. And yes, maybe you do have raised a point on death, but let's be sure that peacekeeping, these peacekeepers, they are not vulnerable to death. Wherever they go and do their missions, they are not vulnerable to death. Yes, they carry ammunition, but they do not necessarily need to use it. After all, they are wearing the blue helmet, blue beret, it's called the blue beret, and it means that they are not supposed to involve themselves in any kind of violence. So they have a very low probability of death. So does that suffice your? Thank you.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? Any more probing questions? I can see some people from Team Solomon's over there. Anything you'd like to throw in? Yes, Nick.
It's not a probing question, but if anybody knows how many peacekeepers Melanesia has, I'd be interested to know, like a total number, either team.
Sorry, I might need you to say that again. It's a bit hard to hear.
Sure. I'm just wondering if either team has statistics on how many peacekeepers there are from Melanesia actually doing active service at the moment.
That's a good question. We know Fiji is very involved. PNG, I think, has been training. Vanuatu has a few in the field. I'm not sure about the Solomons.
According to the research we've done, based on Radio New Zealand, they have stated that Solomons have taken into consideration about sending some of their peacekeepers early next year. It's not happening. Vanuatu is training 16 of their soldiers to be deployed as peacekeepers.
Do you know how many from Fiji are actively serving at the moment?
According to Wikipedia, from 2004, Fiji soldiers, over 240 plus soldiers alone, serve in Iraq. Thank you.
Okay, another question over here.
I'll just answer the question. According to the UN website, Fiji this year, in 2015, has deployed 629 peacekeepers. So, yeah, that's more
This
than
year, 629 peacekeepers from
Yes.
Fiji.
more
Okay.
so than Canada, which has deployed 100 or so. So, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'm looking at our adjudicators now and trying to judge from their body language whether they're ready to give us a decision. Looking good. Who's going to come up? Francis Herman. Oh, Paul. Okay, Paul, come on up and let's hear how the teams went.
Morning. First of all, congratulations to both teams. You displayed some really animated and really good, strong arguments. Congratulations. Yes, I think we had a tie and also really close margins, but the winner of this debate is Vanuatu. And the best speaker is Ms. Kaspar. Everyone, all the speakers displayed really good qualities, really gave the arguments well, but I think you flow with your discussion and really came strong at the end, so well done. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We're going to take a break and come back for our next debate, which will be at 3:30 this afternoon. And just to let you know what that is, the debate motion that will be discussed this afternoon is that poverty is increasing in Melanesia. Again, that poverty is increasing in Melanesia. And that will be battled out between Fiji and the Solomon Islands. So looking forward to that. In the meantime, can we give our adjudicators a big round of applause? Have Francis and Paul and Juliana. Thank you very much, and our terrific timekeeper, Carol Alec. Let's give her a big hand. Thanks to the audience, and look forward to seeing you back here at 3:30 today. Cheers.
To shoot.
Good.
You want to get some shots?
I might just have a quick listen to the audio and see how that goes. You got the
I don't think
headphones.